Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Two Guys, Same Person. Now, actually, you want to do the honors?
I do. Thank you for allowing me into the studio today and for telling me we have an interview with the somehow local and Swedish composer, Petter Wählback.
Shut up! I love this guy!
No. So, I'm going to let him introduce himself through this conversation. Let's stop wasting time. Let's get into it.
Yes!
Okay, welcome, Petter Wählback.
Thank you, Ryan.
So, for the general audience here, Petter and I actually go way back. He was still is, but he was a professor of mine when I moved to Chicago, and I went to Columbia College downtown. But beyond that, we started a family on accident in the middle of college, and Petter met us at a coffee house and talked us kind of off the ledge about regular life, and that stuck with me forever. This was a guy who didn't need to know me, who was some professor who was like, you know what, man? Life happens. You talked to us, we never forgot it. We've made it. You just met our kid who's 7 now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, life goes on. I graduate. You know, you don't try to bug your professors from college, and then all of a sudden, I see one of your videos.
Is it the Sunana?
Yes.
Yeah. Dansen på Sunana.
The algorithm threw it at me, and I'm like, I know Petter. What is this? And then, so I found your YouTube, dug through all of your music, and then I was so glad you were still around. So thanks for coming. Thanks for being open to chat with us. So let's get started.
Yeah, thanks
after
for
my
having
story.
me.
Petter, you are a Swedish composer and adjunct professor of instruction at Columbia College here in Chicago.
Yeah, that is correct.
To start everything off, what's the first album you ever bought with your own money?
First album. Now I remember I won one album, but let's not count that because it was a movie soundtrack.
Cool.
Bloody Mama was the name of it. I still remember the tunes. I was very excited.
Excellent.
It was like in a grocery store. There was this like, I don't know. I have no idea.
Guess the thing, win the thing.
And so I won that. But
nice.
I think my first album must have been, I think it was a Bill Haley album, actually.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, a live album by Bill Haley. I think it was called Bill Haley on Stage.
Okay.
And I enjoy that quite a bit. I listened to quite a bit of 50s music when I was growing up.
So speaking of growing up, where and were you born in Sweden? Did you come over here quick? What's the?
I'm born
story?
in Sweden,
Yep.
in a little town right in between Stockholm and Gothenburg, called Örebro.
Okay.
And then my parents moved to smaller and smaller places.
Interesting.
So I ended up in Sweden in a little village of 250 people.
Wow, small town.
And I lived there until I went to high school. And I actually did not go to college in Sweden.
You went here?
I went here, yes. And I moved to the U.S. when I was 25.
Okay. So, wow, that's insane. I was also a 26-year-old freshman when you met me. So I had a lot of questions about that. So you went through the normal, I guess, schooling, high school, graduated. But then I assume that's around 18, 19 still, even if school goes. I know my brother had to do an extra year of high school after moving over there. Mm-hmm. So what did you do for the 6 years in between?
Yeah, that was like, I was really tired of school.
Yeah.
Right? When I got out of high school, I didn't want to do that. So I worked in a factory for a year.
What kind of factory?
Yeah, we built welding machines. So,
wow, the real deal.
We assembled welding machines. So yeah, I was just doing that for a year.
Yeah.
I went out. This is Sweden, of course. So after 1 year, I got up to my 4 years of paid vacation, which is
beautiful,
nice. So I decided I'm going to go out and travel in Europe. So I, did the train pass for a month with a friend. I wanted to do something else, move away from my little village. Yep. So I came back, and first day back from vacation, I said, I'm quitting.
Reset. So it was Chicago just like a dart on the map? Did you have kind of a connection to the city?
This was still not. That was way out.
Really?
Because this was after my first year of working.
Oh,
so I was just like 12, and I was 19, 20 years old.
Yep.
But since I lived it's not too far from. We're not too far north.
Yeah.
We're actually right south of Stockholm.
Okay.
But to go into Europe, Sweden is very long.
Yeah.
So it was like a 7-hour train ride down to the south of Sweden. And I wanted to be closer to the continent. I was bitten by the bug of Europe, so I wanted to be closer.
Okay.
So I moved to southern Sweden, Malmö, which I spent my next 6 years down there. I started taking I've been playing guitar and drums a little bit, but I started taking guitar lessons, be a little more serious about it. But I worked as many different things. I worked elderly care for a year or two. I can't remember. I worked with a vegetarian restaurant.
Cool.
Cleaning.
Anything.
I did all kinds of stuff. I was a high school graduate. That's all.
Right. Figuring out life. This is in the 90s. You graduated with a bachelor's later on from here in 2000. Yeah. So you're just kind of like, what am I living in your early 20s? What am I doing? Let's do this job. Was music happening at the same time? Were you always into it, or did it slowly ramp up?
I've always been into it.
Yeah.
I never thought
it would be the thing.
No. I mean, played with bands, and it's kind of a thing growing up in a small town in rural Sweden. There's nothing. I mean, there was just like, what do you want to do? I remember even my school counselor.
Okay.
I said, I was into music, and said, well, let's look at a real job instead, a real thing, a real career.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up. I actually went to vocational high school and an electrician.
Wow. Okay.
So
skills for life, though, man.
I know. It's good.
Okay. So you're down there. You're doing it. What ramps you up to hopping over here?
Well, yeah. It's a little bit of a long story, but I can shorten it down a little bit.
Okay.
Because I don't want to talk about her too much.
Okay.
It was my ex-wife.
Got it.
Was recruited. She was a physical therapist, and she was recruited.
Swedish?
Yeah, she is cool. Swedish. There was a shortage of physical therapists here, so they had companies come over there,
recruiting.
Say, do you want to work over here?
Wow.
And so she got a job here, and I got a spouse visa.
Yeah, my brother did the same way in the opposite direction.
You can't work on a spouse visa, so I was like, let's go to college.
Wow. Okay. So you did 4 years for your bachelor's, so that's 96.
Mm-hmm.
You graduate in 2000.
Our relationship falls apart.
Cool.
I'm just, all of a sudden, it's me. It was a little strange because we were two Swedish people living together, and all of a sudden,
now it's you.
It was just me
in America. Yeah.
Which is actually when I feel I started to really
sink in,
get into the American culture and all that stuff, and I got more familiar with things because I must say, it's hard to admit these kind of things, but I was a little bit of a snob.
I get it.
It's like, about America and Americans, and because I didn't really mingle that much with them.
Well, you were here, right, with somebody from your home country doing a thing. Not really planning to move. We're not Americans now. If I go to France for a few years, I'm not French, and I'm not there to pay the taxes and really get into it. But then it all falls apart and turns out I'm staying. I can absolutely see myself going like, okay, well, everybody's been kind of nice. Yeah. Let's figure this out. That's neat. So this was really interesting to me. You graduate in 2000. I want to know what it was like living in Chicago this is your early to mid 20s?
This is mid in
the 90s. Yeah. As an American, this is bulls. This is, and I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, so I wasn't here, but the late 90s in Chicago was a happening place.
Oh yeah, it was pretty cool. With
Tell me about it being, pre all these crazy cell phones, pre-COVID. What's it like?
It's pretty cool because, first of all, I'm from Sweden. There's really basketball is not really a thing. So it was cool. I bought a Jordan shirt.
Did you ever catch a game in the era?
No, not in the era.
Okay.
No, I did not. But it was
cool.
Exciting. I was here for the last 3.
We'll say like '98 was the big, was like the big last one. That was your sophomore, junior year. People going nuts. 'Cause I was here when the Cubs won the World Series.
Yeah.
So I bet you it was similarly chaotic.
It was pretty wild.
So it's awesome. It's the late '90s. You graduate 2000, 9/11. You are a Swedish national living in a major city. What happens?
I mean, that was surreal. I remember, this is right. I'm still actually. This is right when we're breaking up too. So it's.
Oh my God!
We were still together at this time, but it was shortly after that.
Yep.
But I remember I was watching the news and I was thinking, what a freak accident!
Totally. First plane.
It's like I'm just watching. The
Everybody
news.
thought.
This is like, what a freak accident. And then all of a sudden there's an explosion in the second tower.
Plane.
And then they start talking about Pentagon. And then there's another plane going down. It was so wild. I mean, and then, looking out the skies, our skyscraper's still here. It's
Absolutely.
Because it's not like, you live in the middle of
Nobody
nowhere.
knew what the hell was going on for the next few months, right? So it was still complete panic. And then, wipe the skies. You're a major city, Chicago, So I want to know what it felt like with the ultra patriotism that kind of came out with Americans. Of course, we were just attacked, as any nation would. They'd probably rally. So you had been here. You were just kind of settling into the idea of, okay, I'll stick around. How does that affect you as somebody as a non-American? Like,
yeah. I mean, it was.
Did you get were you like, yeah, let's fucking get them? Or
yeah, I mean, in a way, I mean, get to one's responsible, but of course.
Did you feel like you had a cooler head than the people around you, where you were like, hey, let's think about what's really happening? And everyone's
I
freedom fries.
I think there were, that whole thing was just ridiculous.
Yeah. So you get through that. That kind of winds down. You graduate in 2008, skipping ahead, with your master's. Was that a 4-year program?
Yeah, 2.5 years, because it was 2 years plus this semester in LA. So it was 2 years and then a summer.
Okay, so post 9/11, pre-masters, what are you doing in that kind of like 4-ish year window?
I'm graduating. I don't know what to do. I still have an H4 visa.
Yeah.
So I can't work.
Yep.
I actually get a call from Columbia College and say, do you want to work here? Like,
so they reached out to you. You weren't even like, and then I'll work here?
No. I had to say,
I can't.
I am sorry. I can't, dude, because I don't have a work permit. The very next day, my green card arrives. We expected that we would get it eventually, but I didn't know when.
The timing was immaculate.
At first, I was like, oh, damn it.
Right.
But then so I called up the school and said, do you still have this job? And they say, yes, we do. So that's how I got in there. So
before your master's, you got, wow, you made an impression.
I guess so. I mean, it's...
How are your grades?
If
you're a student of Petter right now, don't listen.
I did have good grades.
Good.
I mean, obviously the teachers have noticed me because this is one thing, I don't know if you want to keep this in the podcast or anything, whatever, but I was a really bad student in high school.
Preach.
I was I wouldn't say really bad, but I had a C average.
Yeah.
I just did the very minimum to get through. I remember in English, a teacher at the midterm said, if you just give it a little bit more, you're going to get an A. And my reaction to that was, oh, I don't have to do anything to get a C.
I can pass. Absolutely.
Which is, ridiculous, but that's how my
high school
high school brain was thinking. So, something to think about when you talk to your students. You're almost at an A. I don't have to do anything. So when I got here, this is the first time, of course, my school is not free. It's, I'm taking out study loans from Sweden. So it cost a lot of money, not as much as it does now, but it still cost a lot of money. So I thought I'm just going to give it my all here. So I decided to raise my hand every time I know the answer to a question. So I started doing that, and ironically, after in high school I tried to hide from getting the questions. Ironically, after a few weeks of doing this,
you're just the guy.
I didn't actually. I mean, they asked, and I raised my hand, and the teacher was somebody else.
Yep.
So ironically, I had to answer less questions.
Yeah.
For doing that, but
so, and then you're that guy throughout college. Your teachers are noticing. I actually, as a student, picked Columbia because I imagined that it was people doing it in the city, right? Mm-hmm. I knew that I didn't need like a Juilliard where it was like this conservatory and you know what I mean? But I thought Columbia or any of these schools in a city would have people that are teaching and doing. Mm-hmm. And college is going to be what you put in is what you're going to kind of get out of it. And if you want to get straight A's and you want to be the next professor, do it. But these are human beings, and if you can approach them as adults appropriately, hey, Petter, after class, I was wondering if we could chat. What's it like to get your first gig around here? How do I do something like that? Let me actually jump into. I don't want to jump too far forward in your story here, but when it comes to teaching and discussing with students, is there anything that if you could just download something into every student's brain that walks through your classroom, 1, 2 things? Is there something that you would just immediately give them?
This is something I'm really trying to get my students to get this.
Okay.
Take every lesson, every class as an audition. And always do your best work. Make everything as musical as you possibly can, even if it's a silly, rhythm exercise. Don't just say the notes. Make it musical. And the thing at Columbia, as you said, we are all of us are doing
something, outside of just reading from the textbook.
And that's how I got my first few gigs. Was like, awesome. It's like I'm, in there showing my best self. Yep. I'm always turning my stuff in. It's neat. It's on time, and all of a sudden there's a teacher said, "We have this project. Can you do?"
Yes.
At the time it was scores. I would print scores and stuff like
anything. Clean the coffee filter in the music room.
And that's how I started getting my first gigs.
Yeah. Because with the professors that are in this situation where they're teaching and they're doing, there's nothing that would stop someone from going, you know what, there's this kid in my class who is never late, always has a great idea, probably has some room to grow. He's 19, she's 20, whatever. Is there anything stopping you as a professor from hiring somebody like that?
No, I mean, I do hire people.
Good. Yeah.
I mean, I was going to do, I did actually not pan out completely.
Yeah.
But I hired somebody to do some rapping because that's one thing I haven't been able to.
Not in the wheelhouse. I get it.
So I asked my
Swedish
students.
folk tunes on acoustic is not going to be in my wheelhouse, so we'll trade.
So I had some student do that. Yep. I've had other students singing if I needed a female voice for something.
For sure.
I'm having, I'm asking the voice teachers, do you have any good students?
In particular.
And then they will tell you somebody, which is on the other side of that is, of course, there are students that you wouldn't recommend because that
always late, never whatever.
But so this definitely I've used students, but I'm always, and this is important, I think, I always make sure I pay them well because especially if they are in my class already, that it's really
that's your reputation.
This is outside of the class.
Great.
This has nothing to do with your grades or anything. And I'm not going to try to get you to do it for free because you're a student. This is a professional gig.
You're a teacher through and through, man. Maybe do some projects together just to have some stuff under your belt. But if you're trying to represent yourself, he is teaching you in this moment. There's a value here. You're bringing a value and a product that I cannot replicate my own, and that is worth money because it is your time. Even if it's just the Uber to get here, right? I remember that being a big discussion among students. What do I charge? What is this worth? What's this value to me? If I don't do free, do I get projects? So that's somebody out here is always paying attention. Is kind of the moral. I love that.
And I think also this thing about doing free I mean, you should, with your classmates, with your friends, you can do free gigs.
Yep.
I mean, not free gigs maybe, but have fun together, play together, do projects together.
If Jeff in math is like, can you do music? Don't be like, yeah, $500.
Yeah.
But if Petter Wählback comes, he's like, you want to play guitar for the symphony?
So it's always what was my?
Sorry.
No, that's right.
I do that.
I had a point there, but I was like
doing free projects with friends.
Yeah. So in grad school, I remember, and I thought that was a very wise thing that came through. This Andy Hill when he was teaching the program, and I don't think he was. I can't remember if it was he who said it or somebody one of the composers we talked to through those years.
Yeah.
But he said, if you're doing the free thing in hopes that you're going to do the paid gigs later, it's like you just get to be known as the guy who does it for free. So when they have money, they're actually hiring somebody who's not doing it for free. You just get to be known as the guy who does it for free. So why should we hire them? So I always, again, try to instill my students and for myself too. I always had a hard time, charging enough, but always make sure that it's, is it worth it for me? Is this,
Have you found an easier way to kind of price any services you might give right now when it comes to negotiating salaries, or even when it comes to, playing around with somebody who might need you to come in and play acoustic guitar? Do you... Are you still kind of like, what do I charge? Or do you go, no, I'm worth this? Here we go.
It's a little different depending on the gig.
Yep.
But because it's all basically gigs, right? And it's always a balance. It's like, am I going to get the gig if I ask too little? Mm-hmm. But nowadays I just say, I'm trying to think, I know about how long things take.
Yep.
So I'm saying if I spend this much time on it, it will be worth it. So I'll, let them know that this is what I got. This is what I need. And I calculate an hourly,
of course,
fee, what that might be, and then I go from that. And if
then negotiate.
It's not always great pay, but it's adequate pay. Yep. I mean, I gotta, pay for electricity and software
regular
updates,
life, the regular life behind this literal dream that you're literally living. But what helps in those negotiations are credits, and you have been doing some work, sir. I tried to fit the whole movie in today. I'm a big fan of Good Guy with a Gun.
Oh yeah,
nice work. I wanted to talk about movies and screen and why you focus on that versus. You're a Swedish guy. Why aren't you in a metal band? Why aren't you, you're doing the folk stuff at home? Why are you gigging that around the city? Why screen?
Well, it happened. This is part of an undergrad class I took at Columbia. We had a class. It was actually not run by a film composer, but he's a good composer and a good teacher who had a film scoring class, a 3-credit-hour class.
Nice.
It almost never ran, but for this particular year, it ran with a few friends of mine. And I remember this was the first time I sat down when we got little clips to write for.
Yeah, I remember.
And I sat down, and there was no music, but I heard the music that I wanted to be in there.
Totally.
And I felt such a connection, and it's such a different... It's music that has an outside trigger rather than when I write my own music for my own sake. It's from the inside, but this is an outside trigger, which I found
interesting.
It came to me fairly easily. So I was hooked right away.
Yeah.
This is like, if I can do this, that would be awesome.
This would be it.
And then I got to know that they were going to open an MFA program for film scoring at Columbia.
Wow.
Because I was going to go to, I think I had applied to Northwestern in Indiana.
Okay.
Just go the regular
for sure
PhD thing. But I decided to wait around. It was supposed to be a year. So this was in 2000.
Okay.
And it took 6 years.
It took 6 years.
Before they started that program up.
And so you were teaching, you did, now the semester in LA, that's part of the MFA, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're just teaching, kind of waiting?
Yeah.
Hey, when you guys start?
Yeah.
And you're teaching and then you do the MFA at the same time? Or
Yeah.
did you take a... So you would like, all right, guys, I'll see you in class. And then you go, right?
Yeah, it wasn't the MFA, I didn't teach in the MFA program.
Right. But if I remember, it's like on the same building still, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So you would like teach a class, go upstairs, have a class with somebody you're working with.
Yeah.
Is it easy for your brain to kind of switch from teacher to student in the 10 minutes it might have taken, or
it was a very, is it the right word, collegial?
It was more peers than
when you got to the MFA program, because I also had, it was one of my former students in my year as an MFA.
And now you're kind of all in it. Hey, we're all adults here.
Yes, so we were just like
cool,
and also realized that he was in the beginning a little intimidated to be in the same class as me, but it turns out that we're all just writing music. Yep. It's like
it's a big transition from high school to college, because it's kind of like this is real life, right? And like you'll find that I found that out the first time. So I tried college and I was kicked out because I was partying too much. So and then I worked at Circuit City, that went out of business, joined the Army. But it can be very real, and it'll help you grow if you lean into it. Is that student, are you still aware of them? Are they around?
I was thinking about him today, and I was like, I wonder what he's doing. He started out, he got a good job in Los Angeles right after the MFA program.
Floating around?
But I don't know what we kind of lost contact with.
Of course, life
most
goes
of
on.
them.
Yeah.
And it's been a while now, but I'm hoping they're still doing great down there.
That's really cool. So I already mentioned Guy with the Gun already. Let's see. Here's the award-winning ones. Ghostwriter, Without Charity, Into the Wake, and then I said, again, Good Guy with the Gun. These are all IMDb credits. I'll link it all in the description. On top of that, on your YouTube page, you've also got like scenes from other films, short films that you're doing. Are those, you use those as reels, showing people, hey, this is what I do?
I used to put up them as reels, but if you looked at it, you might have looked at it was like over a decade gap in my YouTube.
And then about a year ago, you started doing...
I started doing this thing because it's like, why not do some fun stuff and just put it out there?
So you still do that? Like,
yeah. I try to do it, if not weekly, bi-weekly. I don't want to do too much. I got interested in doing this Swedish stuff. I got really interested in expressing myself in that way. Maybe I miss my homeland a little bit. I think so.
I can feel that, especially these days. I feel you.
So I started to explore these old songs that I've heard my whole life growing up, and I got, I connect with them. I feel a strong connection with these songs. So.
Do you go back ever?
I go back. My family is there. My parents live there. My siblings live there.
Cool.
So as often as I can, I go.
Good. Going to school actually got you into music for the screen. I'm assuming your first projects were through the school, kind of like, here's the chase scene from Bullet, right? The music to that one.
I remember that.
Yep. So after that, is it kind of the same thing most of us went through? It was your buddies doing film projects. Somebody finally, what was your first kind of real, it's me and it's this project?
Most of the short films were student movies to start out in. And yes, I had a roommate who was a filmmaker.
Yep.
So I wrote the stuff for his thing. There were some other other film MFA students.
Yeah,
I did a few of those. So they were all shorts, and then it was John Mossman who did Good Guy with the Gun, and he. This is the first movie he did was Into the Wake.
Okay.
So that's my first. I think that was my first feature.
Like feature film.
Yeah, which was very cool. All of a sudden, you can develop things, because short films are cool, but
they're kind of short.
They're short,
even in production. You don't have much time.
So this is very cool, and I was part of it from. He sent me a script, so that's kind of nice. So I read it first, and then I saw the raw footage, and it's cool to be with movies for that long.
Yeah, and now that's your second project. Was Good Guy with the Gun.
With John Mossman, yes.
Do you, since we're already on this topic, is there anything to look forward to already? Are you working on any other movies right now?
Not movies. Lately, I've been working a lot with theater in the city.
Yeah, that was my other question, because there's a lot of engineering you've done. You've done a lot of theater production. Are you doing the composition for theater?
In general, I'll do the sound design and music for the place that I'm doing it for. So I because I am a composer myself, and I also do the sound design, I think in a musical way. But I'm really treating all the sounds is like one thing, right? And I don't like to use other people's music, and it's also for theater that is out there. You need to ask for individual rights. I know a lot of people don't do that, but I really want to do it because I write music. I don't want people to use it without asking me.
Absolutely.
So
treat others you want to be treated. It's so simple.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So definitely, that's it. The cool thing about these, we got distribution for Good Guy with the Gun, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome. But I don't have another film lined up right now.
Yep.
We'll see what's
cool. I'm gonna link Good Guy with the Gun. You can actually straight up rent it on YouTube.
Yeah. Or Apple TV.
Or Apple TV. It's on Amazon. It's literally everywhere, which is super cool because you'll usually find these projects, even if it's working stuff. Hey, here's the Vimeo link. Here's $10. Get me into it. Maybe pop it up on somebody's YouTube channel. But when you get legitimate, which is what you're just talking about, distribution. So did you just find out, hey, this is going to be going to everywhere? Because this is your second film with him. Was he, how more hands-on were you with this project than you were with the first film?
Both of them is just, the score is basically all me. And this film has a couple of songs that I didn't write.
Okay.
There's a couple of country tunes in there that, again, it's really not my wheelhouse. So, they just licensed a couple of songs.
Excellent.
But
do you still have to do that editing?
Not for those. No, they'll do it. They do it down at the one of the sound houses downtown.
Okay.
So that's kind of nice. I mix my music as, pretty close to where I want it to be.
Yep.
But then the sound mixer goes in and do it, and it's like, it's beyond me at that
Everybody that I see interviewing about any particular part of a film, actors, I do my thing, and then what happens. Because there's so many hands on it. It's up to the director. Even Star Wars was famously saved in the editing room. You never know what's going to happen. So that's a really healthy approach. It's kind of like releasing music online. I'm done. After this, it is not my business if they love it or hate it, and I don't care because I'm going to make it. You know what I mean? It's their thing to love or hate, and luckily the internet has turned both into an engagement that counts. So you can yell at me that you hate my music. I got a comment.
Yeah.
So let me bring it a little bit back around before we wrap this up here. If you are recognized out and about in regular life by a current student, do you want them to leave you alone? Do you want them to say hi? Is it awkward for you? How does kind of, when they're so young and they're out of high school and they look at you and they're like, oh, that's him. Do you just, hey, how you doing? It's a little fame, right?
Yeah, a little bit like that. But it's, I love it when people come up. It's
Are
totally
pretty
fine.
cool about it? Hey, this is him. Good.
I think I most of the time I have a pretty good relationship with my students. There are always some people. That's always find it interesting when you get back your
like teacher reviews.
The reviews, yeah. There's always somebody who hates your guts. Like, does the class start and begin on time? Strongly disagree. Was the syllabus handed out in the beginning?
No.
Strongly disagree.
Okay. Just a moody. I get it. Do you, a little behind the curtain there, as an employee of the school, do you guys then go have one-on-ones, talk about it? Here's what everybody's saying. Obviously that guy's being a jerk. There's 9 students who love you, and then there's Jeff, who turned in one test, who said you were a dick, and you're like, all right, Jeff, go ahead.
Well, it's not a lot of gossip among students, but it's
good.
Or about students.
Right.
I mean, once in a while, if something is really weird, right, like a reason for concern, then you start to talk.
But usually you just gotta, tough skin. Mm-hmm. It's a kid going through school.
Yeah.
And it's not, that's really important to have, especially I see a lot of students who became teacher aides. And then they'd just be buddies and they'd be like, God, I hate it when they don't show up. And I'm like, imagine working here. Right? Where then that kind of is on you as to be like, anyway, it's a whole thing. I don't want to talk crap about any current students. Let's see. Here we go. So when you get a film or when you get a theater project or actual outside of school work, how do you balance that with having a full curriculum that you've got to teach? Because you teach multiple classes.
I do, but I do teach part-time. So it's not a full-time gig. So I do have that time.
Leeway.
The balance is usually pretty good.
Yep.
And I mean, most of the theater work is when you're at the theaters in the evening because I work mostly non-equity.
Okay.
So it's that's usually evening and weekends. And films, it's my schedule, so I just, when I have time, I write, which is kind of cool, and sometimes hard.
Yes,
because I have time, and I also have I got to do some dishes.
Regular life.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I wish there was like one class for students to be able to see their teachers as regular people, because I think it would help a lot of people get that kind of mysticism away of like, this guy lives here. I mean, you think of like tiny children. My teacher lives at school, and that's all they do, and they don't, but when you realize that your teacher is like, they might be flustered, and you're like, God, Peter was kind of a jerk today. Maybe he was late. Maybe somebody harassed him on the bus. Maybe he's, stressed out. Because when you graduate, I think colleges, if they're doing their job right, also are graduating you into adulthood. Mm-hmm. Hey, this is it, guys.
Yeah,
great
and
luck.
I mean, college really. I mean, a lot of the stuff is to prove that you can jump through hoops, right? For 4 years.
There's another professor. I'm blanking on his name. He was in the Dalniente ensemble. He was super cool. I'll probably remember his name 4 a.m. when I'm trying to go to bed. But he was like being honest with us in our senior year. He's like, even if students lie to me and they get away with it, that happens in real life. Who hasn't lied in a job interview and gotten it? Yes, I can ride horseback. That's how George Takei got on Star Trek. He's like, those little things, these are all life skills that we're trying to teach you, because I am a guy that might hire you, right? So I thought that was a really cool thing, and I think you did a really good job of kind of breaking the facade of, I am a professor of musical arts, and this is hallowed ground where the Beatles were born. And you were just like, hey, what's up? I'm Peter. This is what we're doing. And I think it was a great approach. So let me wrap this up by asking you, if music wasn't the thing that kind of ended up happening, was there ever anything in the back of your head where you were like, rugby? That's what I secretly want to do. I want to be an actor, but I can never tell mom. Anything?
I got to say, I told you in the beginning that I did have a bunch of other jobs.
Yep.
And I loved being a chef. That was awesome. It's very, in a way, it's creative. It's
totally.
Composition, but with food
different
and
flavors. Literally,
it's in some ways similar to, timbres of instruments.
You could call it music of a different sense.
There you go.
That's cool. Okay.
So I think that would be
I could see that too.
What I would have done.
That'd be really cool. All right, man. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us, everybody. Peter Wählback. Check out all the links in the description for any of his movies, theater, music, anything I can find. I'm gonna throw it in your faces. This guy's amazing, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.